Welcome to Epic Geek Out, the only show on the internet that hires Ben Affleck so he can produce this fake podcast to get us out of our day jobs. I'm your host, Rob.
And I'm your host, Chad, and today we're talking about Argo, which is a film coming out this weekend.
And this is a movie week. On Thursday, we're going to be giving a little bit of a late review, but still a good one for Taken 2.
As always, you can check us out on Twitter at Epic Geek Out. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Epic Geek Out. And also check out the website where we're posting some articles, and you can also find our reviews there, www.epicgeekout.com. But let's get into our reaction of Argo. So Argo is Ben Affleck's third directing gig. Also, he stars in the movie alongside Bryan Cranston, Alan Arkin, John Goodman, along with a cast of other great actors and actresses. Mm-hmm. And it's basically the story of a CIA declassified mission that was declassified, I think, in '97 by Clinton. Mm-hmm. And basically the story of them going into Iran under the guise of filming a movie that was titled Argo, trying to retrieve 6 hostages that are taking shelter in the Canadian embassy at the time. So it's a period piece, late 70s in the beginning to early 80s, spans a bit of time. Mm-hmm. But Chad, what did you think of the movie?
Well, I want to say first that I am not familiar with this real life situation. Obviously, we're both born in '86, mm-hmm. So this is well past our...
We didn't live through it. Yes. And maybe skip that week of history.
Surprisingly, after seeing this movie, I'm surprised it's not more of a talked about event mm-hmm. in history. I mean, a movie for people that were around in that time mm-hmm. period, it is. But so I went through this movie not knowing the ending, not knowing what's going to happen at all. Mm-hmm. So that added to some of the enjoyment. But this movie, I said to Rob while leaving, my favorite movie of the year so far. I think you probably agree. It's hard to compare it to our popcorn flicks that we saw, which we mm-hmm. love, Avengers. But we're talking about these serious drama pieces now, Oscar-worthy pieces, and this movie, perfect on every level. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I don't want to take it all. I want to let you talk mm-hmm. about a little bit of it. But just the pacing of this movie really took me by storm. It was great. You're on the edge of your seat the entire time, and some of that, like I said, could lend it to that I don't know what was going to happen the whole time. Mm-hmm. But the way that they punctuate all the moments. They don't linger on anything for too long. It keeps moving. It's just well written, well made movie. I mean, that's all there really is to say about it. It's just perfection, I think, in filmmaking, and it's great. I think the weakest part was Ben Affleck, but he wasn't even that bad. It seemed to take me out of it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But there's parts of this movie where you're not sure what's real footage and what is actually the film, which is really cool because they do insert some of the historical footage of the situation, and then at the very end it's punctuated by a kind of comparison shot mm-hmm. of the actors playing the real people, which look pretty much identical. But I think the biggest thing that I took away from this is a movie about good people doing heroic things, and I think if you're an American, you should see this movie. I think if you're a person, a human being, you should see this movie. It's inspiring what these people did, and not only that, they didn't even get the recognition that they should have at the end of the situation. Mm-hmm. This movie, I feel is such a vindication for these people that we're celebrating, their acts of crazy things that they mm-hmm. do. I mean, it's just insane what these people go through, and you can't describe the tension that you get just from a scene of 2 people talking, next to each other, and it's more suspenseful than any movie I've seen this year, for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the past 5 years I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, you're just in the moment of every moment, and I don't know why Ben Affleck keeps picking these crazy movies, because I enjoyed the other 2 films as well, and they're just such story pieces, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. They're driving story and crazy stuff.
Well, and that's the first thing that I want to talk about is, kudos to Ben Affleck for really picking movies.
And Brad Pitt, you're good too, but
yeah, he's okay. that really are stories. All his movies, starting with Gone Baby Gone, which I adored, to The Town, which was solid throughout, to this, really are movies about people put in these situations, and it never wavers from the fact that these movies are about people first. And the setting of this movie, like it was said, late 70s, early 80s, it feels so real. Now, there are some minor complaints, which I'll just get out of the way, and then I'll gush about how much I loved it. Some of the people felt super realistic and felt like, they were plucked from that time period and, dropped on the screen.
Particularly the six
hostages,
which
absolutely felt
I think
that
that
way.
we don't know their names. Well, like some of them we do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they deserve a lot of credit.
And I think the fact that they weren't super well-known actors and actresses, certainly they've been in other film and television, but it fit in the realism of seeing them. And then you have Hollywood being portrayed by John Goodman, who is, you can't not recognize him if you've seen a movie, and Alan Arkin, and they fit that Hollywood vibe. Whereas I think it was great to cast more well-known people on like the CIA front with like Bryan Cranston, and then also having these really, really solid actors and actresses as the hostages, and they felt so real. There were parts of this movie that I was like, oh, that's they're just doing that as a movie, and most of those parts of the movie. Then at the end, if you see this, please stay till the end. There's a voiceover by Jimmy Carter talking about, I'm pretty sure it was Carter, right?
Yeah.
Talking about the mission. And then they show stills of the movie juxtaposed with pictures that they plucked. And they were the exact, it's like they picked the moments from the movie that they thought people would question and said, no, that really did happen. Because they were the moments that I thought had, that I had issue with. Also, it was tension beyond all compare. The ending, I wasn't, it felt a little Hollywood to me towards the end, but, I wasn't there, so it might have happened that way. And then again, this is a movie, so you got to give it some leeway, just because the rest was perfect. The beginning shot of the movie, the beginning 20 minutes, was some of the best crafted filmmaking I have truly ever seen. It blended real life. I could not tell where real life was and when it was they were filming it. So that's amazing, and that's what filmmaking should be. And I enjoyed that tremendously. The acting throughout is tremendous. The story. I mean, to just think that this is based on a true story, and why this wasn't made into a movie the year after it was declassified and made,
I'm glad it wasn't, because I'm glad it was done this way.
Yeah, but it was done so very well and so across the board, just like great. It was just great. And we got in this discussion in the car, and I think I want to touch on it a little bit. His style of directing, he never interjects himself too much, except for, I guess, having himself star in 2 out of 3 movies, but he never interjects his style to steal away from the story. He lets the story dictate what the shots were going to do, and he put you in situations in this movie where sometimes there were subtitles and you knew what was being spoken. Other times, they're speaking Farsi or whatnot, and you have no idea what they're saying, and you feel the tension, and you feel as if what these people who don't know this language must have felt in this situation. There's a wonderful scene where they're in the bazaar, and they're doing this like kind of tour thing, and and something happens, and you feel the tension and you feel the emotion was captured so well, and it's just so refreshing to see a movie like. I mean, I love the great directors that are out now that you can see it, and like I think a Christopher Nolan movie, you can kind of tell that that's a Christopher Nolan movie. There are shots that match up to his filmmaking, but just to see a movie that there weren't any crazy shots. It was subtle. It was shaky when it needed to be shaky, and it lent itself so well to the overall storytelling, which I have to just repeat. The storytelling of this movie was just the best part, and I mean, really, everyone should go see it. I mean, it's a film. It really is. It's not a movie. It's a film.
It's such a there's so many things, and we talked a little bit about it, and we can't really speak to everything because it's
I don't want to give anything away.
I don't want to either, because if you don't know about this event, go see the movie. Don't look it up. But there's so many juxtaposed moments where there's things, and the movie itself is a juxtaposition of awful events, but like good people rising up out of that. And It's just like you say, it's about the people, and it's crazy.
So many different worlds clashing, let alone the CIA trying to work with Hollywood, or them going over to Iran, which is two completely different worlds clashing.
Right.
But it was great, and when they were reading a storyboard, when they were going through a read through for the press, it was just this powerful moment of the movie that was just so good, and then it juxtaposed with scenes from when they were. It was just so good,
and it's not just like a feel good American movie. It's good for brings on the Canadians.
Yay, Canadians.
It also criticizes America in where it needs to, not in a bad way, but just
I think it
amazing.
I don't think it ever criticized in stand on a soapbox, or give a speech kind of thing. But it showed that no one's perfect. That people make mistakes, and and it was just good. I highly recommend this. This is a go out to a theater, rush out to a theater and go see. So it's that time of the episode where we like to give our thanks. So Chad, what are you thankful for today?
Well, in light of last week being the 1-year anniversary of Steve Jobs passing away, much to my dismay, I want to recommend a sort of film, I guess it's a film, that is out called Triumph of the Nerds, which is kind of a backstory on Silicon Valley and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates.
Is this the one with Ashton Kutcher? Or?
No, there's 2 upcoming films coming out about Steve Jobs, the Walter Isaacson biography one, and then the Ashton Kutcher indie one. Not sure what those are going to be like, but this film, it does dramatize their lives a little bit, but also weaves in some real life interviews and stuff. And it's kind of crazy. Love or hate Apple, love or hate Microsoft. It's crazy how this stuff got started. And you think about seeing Argo in the beginning, when there's crazy stuff going down in this embassy. They didn't really have computers back then. I mean, this is the late 70s, early 80s, when computers were huge and they didn't have them. And just how much has changed. And it's all kind of thanks to these guys, and not just Steve Jobs, but also Bill Gates and all those guys in Silicon Valley. So check it out, Triumph of the Nerds.
Yeah, so the show is called Epic Geek Out, so we certainly love geeky things, but also myself along with Chad, we're also huge sports fans, and one thing I would like to give my thanks out today that combines the two for non-nerds not realizing they're playing a role-playing game. I would like to give my thanks to fantasy football. We've both been in a league for now, I think like 3 or 4 years. Last year I am the returning champion. Not gonna happen. I don't know. I'm 3-2 at this point. But check out fantasy football if you haven't. I mean, get a group of friends. You can do it for I think our league's only like $30 or just something that maintains your interest throughout. Or you can do it for free if you're just checking it out. But I'm more just I root for my home team. But now this gives me an excuse and really makes me interested in watching the other games.
Exactly. So
you're at least rooting for a player, and really it makes Sunday, a kind of a whole day opposed to just that, one game I was watching. So, it's too late this year to form one, but, try to get one planned for next year. I mean, Yahoo runs a great one where you do a draft through it. It does all your point systems for you. So definitely check out fantasy football if, you're a fan and, haven't before.
Cool. So we'll be back on Thursday with our belated-ish review of Taken 2, but you want to check back for that because it took me by storm, taken me by storm. So check back for that, but thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.